This is Vet Your Pet. I'm Dr. Peter Higgins, and today we're going to be talking about dog-proofing your yard. And we've got two people to help us here today. One little person called Kaiser, and another little person called Heidi, who's going through the bushes, who's doing exactly the point that I'm raising today about dog-proofing your yard. Now, there's a number of things in anyone's yard, which is a normal looking yard that you have here, that can be dangerous for your dogs. Now, our friend Kaiser here actually has already had a problem with this just in the last couple of days, and I'll explain that in a minute about what's happened to Kaiser. But we'll give Kaiser one of those because he's been a good boy waiting there. But the sorts of things we have in our backyard that we normally use are fine to use. So for example, things like fertiliser and so on. If you want to fertilise the yard and your plants, your grass, your flowers, whatever it is, not a problem whatsoever. However, what you do need to realise is that most fertilisers are poisonous to dogs. So when you're spraying them, the dog shouldn't be around when you're spraying them. That's the first thing. And then where do you keep things like this? Out of their reach. Now, I'm not saying necessarily put it up in a tree like I'm doing there, but it's something for you to think about. Out of the reach of your dog. The second thing in the yard, apart from fertiliser, is top dressing. Now, top dressing a soil or any sort of fertiliser that you might use to for the soil can be dangerous to dogs too. So once again, top dressing is something that we should definitely be using to help soil and grass, but keep it out of the way of your dogs, because if they get into that, that can also be poisonous as well. And even things like, simple things like insecticides. Now once again, insecticides are something that we would use commonly. Kaiser's still here. Good boy, Kaiser. You know, one of those. And insecticides can obviously be poisonous to dogs and cats too, for that matter. What did you miss out? This is Heidi. Heidi's now joining the production today, aren't you, Heidi? You've been a good boy. You can have one of those. Okay, so insecticides, keep out of the way of dogs, and when you are spraying them around, make sure the dogs and cats aren't around. And once again, put them up somewhere high. So maybe not quite there, but somewhere that's out of the reach of dogs. If you've got a shed, you've got a garage, put them in the garage on a shelf where the dogs can't get to. Now, the other things around the yard which can be a problem are the sorts of plants that we have. Now, for example, azaleas, hydrangeas, lilies, those sort of plants are poisonous to dogs. So what do you do about that? We could say, well, don't have them, but that's probably not a good solution if you like those particular plants. So one of the best ways around it is to actually put a piece of fencing around them. So here we have a very strong fence. That'll keep the dogs out, and that stops the dogs from getting in there and from eating it, because unfortunately, even though they're poisonous, some dogs actually quite like the taste of these plants, and they will eat them, and they will get sick from them. And the way they get sick is it affects their liver, it affects their kidney, they can become very lethargic, they can start to vomit, they can get diarrhea, they can even get sicker than that. And in certain cases, if you eat enough of it, they could even kill them. So the sorts of things you've got to watch out for. So I'm not saying don't have these sorts of plants. What I'm saying is put something around them so the dogs can't get to them. Now, the other thing you can use to protect certain things is just a piece of ag piping like this one here. Now, normally you'd use that in the yard underneath the ground perhaps, or use it as drainage, but it's actually a good way to put things in there that you want to keep away from a dog so that they don't get to it and it doesn't get to them. Now, as well as plants and things in the yard, we also have instruments that we use, don't we? And here we have Heidi here giving me some advice. What do we want to do, Heidi? You being a good girl? Sit. Good girl. Good girl. We have instruments that we use. So one of those things would be a trowel, for example, and there's other sharp instruments. Now, dogs don't know what these are for. Many people don't know what they're for, but dogs don't know what they're for, and instruments like this can actually cause problems with dogs by perforating their skin, even their abdomen or their mouth. Some of them will try to eat them, believe it or not, and if they do, they obviously can get very sick. So my friend Heidi here, one of the control mechanisms we have with Heidi is she loves this more than she loves food. So I'll just throw it out a shot and off she goes chasing her bouncy ball. So that's a good way to control dogs in the backyard too. The other thing that we have in backyards that are dangerous are just things like nails. Okay, so we always have nails in the backyard for all sorts of things that we have, fencing and so on. There's a typical sort of nail, just there. Okay, now we've got to inspect these on a regular basis because sometimes despite the best usage and the best methods, the nail will stick out. And what will happen when the nail sticks out is a dog could jag their skin on it. Now, I said my friend Kaiser here has actually been a victim of this, and I thought that was a good reason to do this topic today about dog proofing your yard. And if you're squeamish, you might want to turn away. But poor old Kaiser today, or yesterday rather, actually got himself jagged on a nail. Now the problem with this is it could become infected. So he's had some antibiotics. He's also had some creams to put in there to help it heal and get rid of any bacteria that could happen. And you might wonder, well, why haven't I sutured that up? Why is that still an open wound? Well, the reason for that is I actually want to let it drain. I will let it drain for a couple of days and then have a look at it and see if it'll be sutured up. But this sort of wound, which is a deep wound done on a nail, it'd be better to let it drain and get all the bacteria and, if you like, pus out of there, and then have a look at maybe suturing it in a couple of days' time. This only happened yesterday, so it's still quite painful for Kaiser. And I will bandage it up when we're finished with this to stop him from trying to lick it or helping to heal it himself. But this is a good example of not dog-proofing the yard, and that's one of the things that can happen. And through the magic of modern video technology, this is now 2 days later from when we were in the scenes in the yard, and Kaiser has had his stitches. The wound has drained fully. He's been stitched up, and this will now take about another week or perhaps 2 weeks to heal completely, but he's feeling much better now because of the treatment that he's had. So the take-home messages today: dog-proof your yard. They don't know what's bad for them. They don't know what's dangerous. By all means, have the flowers and the plants that you want, but put something around them to protect them from the dogs and to protect the dogs from them. If you use fertilisers, if you use top dressing, if you use that sort of thing on your soil, your plants, your flowers, your grass, by all means do that, but remember that it is poisonous to dogs. And have a good look around the yard for exposed nails and other instruments that you may use, because that can be dangerous to dogs too, and cats as well for that matter. This is Vet Your Pet. I'm Dr. Peter Higgins, and I look forward to talking to you again.